Chilly day again. Let's go inside. Ready for the year ahead? Well, I've spent the best part of last year getting my boat ready, so I hope to use it a little more this year. Only I know my limitations better, and so most of it will be done on this river, not cruising the country. There are several miles of tributaries to explore, which I'm capable of doing, providing I don't wait until the weed growth stops me. So there should be some more tales to tell soon. I always need slaves to drive, or just to relieve the boredom of boating alone. So if anybody wants a free holiday afloat, get in touch. With April came the better weather, and also some boating activity and dog shows to attend. I journeyed to Mildenhall to help our friend Anne with a show for raising funds for rehoming the retired greyhounds from the track where she works as a trainer. I acted as steward for a nice man to judge the greyhounds, while Barney was back in his winning ways in the fun show ring. Through the internet, I made contact with an elderly couple with a lurcher who lived not too far away. Shortly after our arrival we met, and the elderly man took Barney to save him from being stuck in the car all day. I suggested he enter him in a few classes, so Barney ended up winning Best Crossbreed, Best Over 23 Lurcher and 4th in Judge's Choice. My day was just as enjoyable, and in the evening we visited the local pub, which remained open until the early hours. In the morning I rested to recover, leaving Anne, who had gone to work, to an arranged meeting with a chap who was buying my original outboard to repair. A pleasant journey to his house without getting lost, that's amazing, resulted in another friend being made. We visited his boat and had a short journey into March, which proved a delightful trip along the riverbank cottages. Leaving at around 5 p.m. for home, we had got to Peterborough when another internet friend rang to say she had arrived in Kettering for a tempting job. She had brought me her spare computer monitor to replace mine and suggested meeting for a meal. I remembered a restaurant at Barnwell Park about halfway, the perfect meeting place. She could not have rung at a more appropriate moment. After a pleasant meal and chat, we left for the remaining 80-mile journey home. So a terrific weekend to start the year. Not only successful for Barney, I had supplemented my boating fund, met 3 internet friends and had my defective monitor replaced. Plenty to do, including sleeping aboard. The next weekend, a bank holiday, I'd arranged to go downstream on the boat with my friend on his. After staying the night, we were to explore the small tributary to Sleaford. This long disused canal is being restored by volunteers and a large grant, and is navigable to the small village approximately halfway. That's the one you've seen. However, we awoke on Saturday morning to a cold, strong wind, so came back to Barney instead. The next weekend was the Tastruph CMC Dog Show. That's Crossbreed and Mongrel Club CMCs. We attended, met our friends and had a nice day and a 4th place. Afterwards, we visited our friend John, who lives not too far away. After enjoying a nice meal, we had a ride to see the small river. A lovely walk along the bank strengthened our determination to explore on the boat. The following weekend, another bank holiday, saw lots of activity on the river. My boat club were having a cruise to Bardney Lock, mooring just around the corner against the banks on the Old Witham. The Sleaford Navigation Trust were having a cruise in their narrowboats along the Kyme, the river I wanted to explore. A neighbouring boat left to go to Lincoln, but got a large fishing net around his propeller, that is. The boats from my club coming to Bardney rescued them. I helped free it, and in the evening suggested visiting the club barbecue with a bottle of wine as thanks. Friends were possibly coming to the lock for a barbecue, but unknown prior arrangement prevented this. We went around the corner on my boat, but poor weather saw the communal barbecue cancelled, with everyone disappearing onto their boats after cooking their food. After a walk along the riverbank, we went back on mine and had a nice chat. My friend John had joined us, saying on our return for a chat with me and a game of chess. I mean, heck, I bet I lost. I stayed aboard, probably kept awake by only having a corned beef sandwich all day. The next day brought far better weather than forecast, so I rang John to see if he wanted to join me for the Kyme trip. He agreed, so I found myself washing the mud from the boat and preparing for the trip, reminiscent of the stock car days. I left for the 2.5-hour trip to the moorings at the mouth of the Kyme, only to run into a very strong wind just after I turned the corner under the bridge leaving Bardney. However, still made good time, arriving at around 1 o'clock. I had just got a little gas stove and John arrived after I moored, so we had a cup of tea before setting off down the Kyme. My other friends arrived just in time to come along, perfect timing. So my little boat was almost full, containing 4 adults, 2 children and 1 dog. Turned the corner onto the Kyme, reduced the gale to a brisk wind, far more enjoyable. A short while later, we arrived at the lock. I've been told at length about this lock, how the guillotine is hand wound, requiring lots of turns of the small handle. The volunteers had done a good job of tidying the grass, and the whole place looked very inviting. I found the windlass, the handle needed for winding the paddle, was too large, but had enough tools to effect a spacer to make it usable. A narrowboat had just arrived at the other side of the lock, and was none other than the chairman of the trust. A lovely chance meeting. Also, more help to help with winding. After pleasant introduction, we locked through and continued up this pleasant little waterway. We met one other narrowboat before coming across the remaining 5, moored across the river in the village, much to the surprise of some of the occupants. A very warm welcome was offered both by the boaters and villagers. After a short walk around, we headed back, and my friends had to return to their guests coming to their house. John had brought some sandwiches and cakes, and after our return to the Witham, I set off back to Bardney, arriving just as it got dark. Through the lock and moored and journey home by 10:30 p.m. After a couple of days with just the odd sandwich, I was beginning to feel a bit like a celebrity survivor, so my meal has really tasted so good. But an unusual, trouble-free boating day made this small sacrifice well worthwhile. A couple of weeks later, a neighbouring boater said he would like to make the trip up the Kyme with me. It all depended on his outboard engine being okay when he remounted it, as he had taken it home to service it over the winter. Later on the Saturday afternoon, however, he found he would have to cancel, as a small rubber washer connecting the petrol pipe had been lost. I came home, returning on the Sunday to see if I could find someone who wanted the trip. No one did. However, mindful of the need to go before the week grew, I set off alone. I rang a few friends, adding to Vodafone's vast profits from my quickly diminishing savings, but in vain. Everyone was either busy or poorly. I arrived at Chapel Hill only to find it almost deserted. Not wanting to go alone, I continued down the Witham after a cup of tea and short rest. I thought I might be able to go through Hampton's Gout Lock onto the Boston trains if some willing hands could be found to help me through. This proved easy, as a following sailing boat of young men moored to go to the nearby pub shortly after I arrived. The hardest part was getting Barney off and on the boat from the high quayside. Later I discovered you could moor at the far end against the low grass banking. Once through, I thanked my newfound helpers and slowly set off along the narrow and rather overgrown waterway. The low side of the lock has a ladder, the only point to disembark, something I had to do to retrieve my windlass, the handle, that is, that's required to operate the paddles. Thanking the stars I was still fit enough to climb this 20-foot vertical ladder in the quayside, apparently someone much higher though, I quickly came to the junction of the main road under the road bridge. Looking to the right, I thought there was only a sluice, so must turn left. I did not notice there is another lock here. I was attempting to visit my friend John, despite the fact he was not answering either phone, so appeared to be otherwise engaged. I turned left on a fairly wide and healthy looking drain. I had not brought maps, but should be able to navigate from memory, plus knowledge of the area and the occasional road sign I could see. I knew I needed to turn right onto the drain to take me to Sibsey. What I did not know was the entrance to the trader drain was the other side of the lock. I had missed it. It did not matter as the one I was on takes me to only another mile away. I found a suitable mooring against the bank just before the road leading to Sibsey. Still no answer from John's phone, so I wrote a note and set off with Barney for the pleasant, slightly longer walk. In the car, this road seems fairly short, but halfway down the long straight I could have sworn I was on a treadmill. We didn't seem to be getting any nearer. A small shower necessitated the use of the light raincoat I was carrying, but at least it took my mind off the long walk. We arrived at last and had a pleasant surprise as John answered the door on my knock. He had been in the garden, so had not heard the phone. He was pleasantly surprised to see us. I'm including Barney, who now regards John's house as his second home, and provided a nice meal, an evening entertainment which included watching Heartbeat, our favourite programme at the time. Later he ran us back to the boat in his car, where we spent a pleasant night. Next morning I rang him as planned when we set off for home. He met me at the lock, having first prepared it, so I could go straight in. A passing couple helped, including the man who lives in the old lockkeeper's house. All very nice, friendly people.